Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. You caught Trent and I in our natural
pretend to
habitat.
be friends. Pretend to be friends now. Cameras on.
That's how you know you're actually friends, when you can tell your friends you hate them to their face, and you're like, "All right, I hate you too. I'll see you tomorrow." It's like the meme that's out there. Welcome back to the team room. It's Trent. It's me. We're going to talk some of these questions. Some of y'all need Jesus. I got to be honest. Looking through these questions that we kind of put out on the Instagram story last night, I don't know what, man. Y'all got to take a break from the internet, but we're gonna talk about it. It's gonna be good. We did want to talk first, though. Had a good Thanksgiving break that we just took. Trent, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. It was good. You know, I saw the newest nephew in the family, and we call him Squish Malone. That's his name now.
Squish Malone, because he's not Post Malone yet.
Yeah. So he's Squish Malone, but he's squishy. Okay. But like I surprised myself on Thanksgiving. I don't know if you're like this. I don't eat really that much. But on Thanksgiving, I was like, oh, it's eat time. And I ate a ridiculous amount of food. I'm not sure how I did it, if it was even possible. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'm just getting old and my body's like, let's store it for winter. Shit.
Yeah, fantastic. There is some literature out there that talks about how you should actually change your diet in the winter. So that's why you have like soups and stews and those like higher caloric intake foods and stuff to help you actually like get through the winter. That there's some research to suggest that that's beneficial. I just like to eat soup and stew because I'm from Ohio. Typically, all of our food is like the same color, right? Like it's all like a color beige. So if I can just keep it in the brown to beige color palette, that's some Ohio stuff that if you're not from Ohio, I've talked about this with a bunch of friends. We all laugh. Only in Ohio will buttered bread be a side dish. You'll just have like a big plate, and on that plate will be like 4 slices of straight like white bread, like gluten to the extreme, and then some butter. And if you're not from Ohio, you're like, what's that for? You're like, oh, that's a side dish. But like, we're having pasta. Right, but there's your bread.
Oh my gosh.
That's not supposed to happen. I don't know how fat Ohio is in the grand scheme of things, but I imagine, citing that previous fact, it's pretty big.
I'm pretty sure Louisiana's ahead of the game on that market. But weren't you traveling during Thanksgiving? Weren't you on the fly?
I did. I did not have a Thanksgiving. Well, I did have Thanksgiving dinner. However, I traveled on Thanksgiving, so we went to Cleveland. Cleveland, this is for you. We went to Cleveland to go hang out with my really close friends, Chaz and Don. Shout out, Chaz listens occasionally. I'll make sure to let him know when this comes out. So Chaz, Don, their son, we went to Cleveland to hang out with them. We planned poorly, right? We wanted to go when it wasn't $1 million, but obviously the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is terrible to fly on and just an absolute hellscape. So we were like, no, pass. And then we were looking at Friday, and it was just too late. Like it wasn't enough time to get in Cleveland and do all the stuff we want to do. So we were like, all right, well, check it out. We're flying on Thanksgiving. Highly recommend it. Airports were dead. Lounges were clear. It was totally fine because people have like families that love them and stuff, and they're like doing things with those families.
Yeah.
Not me. Not us.
Did you and every like the other 6 people in the airport all just high five each other like, we're the lonely people without families?
It actually was kind of nice. Like we flew out pretty early out of SeaTac, and then we had about an hour and a half in Atlanta, and everybody in Atlanta was like, happy Thanksgiving, eating like the Delta Lounge food. So it was pretty funny.
They're like,
but got there and chilled out. And then, so the Ohio State game, happened. Second year in a row, we lost to Michigan. Nate Gladden and I have to settle up. I got to buy a bottle for the team room, which is our yearly bet. So fine. Funny development though. USC just got beat last night. USC was not supposed to get beat. They were number 4 in the playoff contention. Ohio State only slipped to number 5 because they lost to the number 2. They were the number 2 team. They lost to the number 3 team. And while they did it at home, that doesn't really make you slide out of the rankings. USC got beat by a team outside of the top 10. So now in the funniest possible scenario, Ohio State can sneak into the playoffs if they pull the world's largest upset over Georgia, and Michigan does what it needs to. Ohio State will play Michigan in the national championship.
Well, I find that wild. I still don't understand anything about what you just said.
Yeah, it's a very niche.
I understand that maybe if we talked about sports more, we would get more like viewers. Like maybe I'm the outcast here.
Sure.
But I don't.
Peaches doesn't watch sports either, though.
No, we kind of make fun of you.
Like
about
he sort of pays attention, but I think I'm the only one of us that plays, fantasy football. And then college, I really only care about Ohio State like wave tops, and it's really just because geographic location. It's not even like I can't name every single player on the team. Like I know the big names, you know, CJ Stroud, the quarterback, some of the receivers, some of the running backs. I don't like watch every single game. I start paying attention at the end of the year. You know, I definitely watch the game every year. I watch the Ohio State Michigan game every single year, regardless. But it's not. I'm not this huge super fan of college too. There's just too much stuff going on.
Dude, I get most of my sports updates from your Instagram page. Yeah, and when you and Nate start going back and forth.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And then Sunday on the Thanksgiving weekend continued. I got the rarest of treats. I was in the dog pound at Cleveland Stadium. I watched Cleveland take Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to overtime. And then everybody could feel it coming in the stadium. And this is a funny thing about the Browns is we tie it late. We are going to overtime and everyone was collectively nervous. If we can ever find a way to transform energy into like usable energy, into like electricity, if we could find nervous energy, I want you to just put it near Cleveland Stadium because that thing would power everywhere. It's like the United States. We just could feel it. They got the ball first. They didn't score. And we went right down the field and scored on, 2 or 3 big plays and it was over. The crowd went nuts. And that was it. We saw a Cleveland Browns win. I got to see Tom Brady, the GOAT. I got to see him play live. And that was my Thanksgiving back here.
Not bad.
Not a bad time at all. We haven't really talked about your PME experience. People don't understand what PME is. We kind of talked about it. It's your professional military education. I don't understand what PME is. Like, what do we? I don't know. Well, we all poo-poo it. Somebody brought it up to me, and they said that it was the difference between us and Russia. And I thought about that this entire week, and I think that is somewhat true. What do you think?
Incorrect.
Why?
The responsibilities and the leeway we give our NCO Corps is the difference between us and Russia, not your PME courses. Like, very few people, I would say, go through PME and are like, I'm ready to be an NCO now. Like, I'm ready to lead. I can do all these things. Like, I'm ready. I don't know what it's supposed to set you up for. It's the way that our NCO Corps is set up with relationship to the officer corps that makes the difference. That's what the other countries are lacking, not the education. I don't know what else to say about it. That's what I think.
I think I understand what you mean, but wouldn't you say that having a formalized educational course for the enlisted, like I get it that maybe you don't get as much out of it. Maybe you go to these courses and you're like, yeah, check, Roger, I was already doing that. But everybody gets that education, right?
Dude, don't make me turn around and find the positives in PME today. Because I'll do it, and then I'll hate myself later.
It's too early. It's too early. All right, let's jump into these questions. Here we go. As I alluded to before, Trent and I made the mistake of putting out a story that was like, hey, just give us your weird questions to talk about. Some of them are good. Some of them, y'all, I'm telling you, I don't know what you do with your time, but here we go. From P_SOBD, do you guys wear pants on the podcast?
No.
That's for me to know and for you to find out, my friend. Beck and Chris 7987. San Antonio, right. Beck and Chris 7987. Books, if any, that you're reading now. You got anything you're reading right at the moment?
I'm reading Find, Fix, Finish about the Australian SAS in Afghanistan and some of the shenanigans that went down and some of the accusations that were leveled at those folks. What about you?
Yeah. So I just started reading. A good friend of mine, SR guy, got me the 5 Rings. So the Musashi book. Yeah, it's a really, really good, really interesting, gorgeous book. It includes a lot of Japanese art and Japanese history. So that's good. And then I'm finally getting around to rereading The Kill Chain. When it came out, I read it just as everybody told me, hey, you got to read this book because it's this brand new thing or whatever. So I just kind of like breezed through it, but I didn't really like read it. I sort of just like skimmed and got topic through it. So I'm rereading that one and trying to internalize it a little bit more. So there we go. Let's see.
Can I just say,
I'm going to read this. Go ahead.
When like the community has like a book that's hot at the moment, like Gates of Fire or whatever, I refuse to read that book. Like I still haven't read that book just because like that's just the way I am,
Right.
Everybody's like, we're Spartans now. And I'm like, you're a bunch of idiots. Right. Like I'm not reading that stupid book.
Dude, this is why we're friends, right? It's because I do the same thing. Like if there's I've still never seen Squid Game for the same reason. Because everybody's like, oh my God, Squid Game is so good. I'm like, shut up. I'm not watching your dumb thing. Like I will do that just out of sheer spite. I will be like, oh, is this it now? Till Valhalla burn the brother.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
This is a good one. So Trey Robinson 64. What are the odds of not getting selected if you make it through without sucking? Go ahead.
0.
Thank you.
Because you put the without sucking in there.
Right, the without sucking. Yeah, if you go through and you don't suck, then you have nothing to worry about. People are always like, well, what if the people that are like, I went through, and I guess this is directed at the people that have said this before, but I'm not naming you specifically. So if you internalize it, it's too bad. That's a you problem. If you went through and you didn't get selected, you sucked. I don't know a different way to say that. There's a million reasons, I guess, that we could put in here and try to make you feel better about it. But if you go through and you don't suck, you're going to get selected. And oh, by the way, you're going to get selected for the job that you wanted, like almost 99.9% of the time. If you go through and you don't suck, you're going to get picked up for exactly what you want.
That's what we want. Oh, can I just say, like, one of the other things I was thinking about earlier this morning is one of my guys that I knew like 4 years ago that didn't make it just got picked up at A&S a little bit ago. And when I get like messages like that, it was fantastic. It's like, like those students that leave that you're like, bro, like something bad happens or whatever. And you're like, I hope they come back. But
dude, one of the
right way.
one of the scariest jump video. I still have this video. It's terrifying. One of the scariest jump videos that I've ever been involved with. One of the student just could not figure it out. His pack shifted. He did some other stuff. So I think that was his second go at an evaluation during free fall during the air ops phase. And he ended up having to leave and everybody hated it. But it was, I mean, it was clear as day. It was like, hey, it's a double red. You failed. This was a bad, you just had a bad go of it for this block. So whatever. But no kidding. I was in Birmingham. This was like 2 years ago. I was in Birmingham doing the Moab. And in walks this guy, I won't out his name, but in he walks. And I looked, I was like, dude, what are you doing here? He's like, yep, I ended up being able to come back after you left the schoolhouse. I'm over at one of the guard units now, and here I am for the Moab. It was the best feeling ever. Like I told him straight up, I was like, man, I am so glad to see you in this room.
Yeah, I love that. It's always nice to see the folks.
Tim, let's see
what I think
here
they deserve.
Tim
based on all their hard work.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Tim Burr.
No, I think I'm a little laggy.
Timber Lamberton. You are a little laggy. It's fine. It'll come out in the wash. Are there furries in AF Spec War? There better not be, because that's not a thing. Let's see.
Can we like
Ocean?
Yeah.
What's up? Nothing for that one?
Nope.
Okay. I love I just love that face. Fantastic. All right, Ocean Epsilon. Favorite Sour Patch Kids flavor?
They're called nerds.
Yes.
I don't like Sour Patch Kids.
What's your favorite candy?
I don't know. I'm not like a big anything not chocolate candy. Probably like almond mounds.
Why have we always been best friends and just never knew it? The only regret that I have is that we haven't been best friends. So first of all, it's Almond Joy, but Mounds is an appropriate second as well. So Mounds doesn't have the almond.
There it is.
Right. Yeah, got it. But I love, actually my favorite chocolate candy bar is Heath. So it's the chocolate covered toffee bar. Yeah, that's my favorite one of all time. Yeah. Halloween was tough for me because we had this awesome tech sergeant, IDMT. She is gangster. She's strong as shit too. Like consistently outlifts people that are way stronger than her. The guys in the gym, way stronger than her. She is nasty strong. Anyway, she had candy on her desk starting in like late September, candy on her desk. And I would just walk over there and be like, oh, hey, Peggy, I'm just over here to talk about medical stuff. And then just like grab like handfuls of candy, like, and go back to my office like a rat. Like terrible.
Eat it in shame.
100%. Will Rhodes. What's the beard situation like for AFSW guys? Deployments only, no shave November. So it varies. It varies on where you're going. Beards are, we deal with this every year. It's like, oh, well, we're getting ready to deploy. We need to grow beards because it gives us a little bit of credibility with our partner forces. That is actually true. So when certain partner forces, especially when we're talking about GWOT, so Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, if you show up with like a clean face, they're immediately like half the time. My favorite is like they'll come up to you and like touch your face and be like, "Oh, look how cute you are! Look how cute this young boy is," which is pretty funny to watch him do to like a real big American guy. So if there's a reason for it, 100%, we do it all the time. I will tell you from the inside, there are ST guys everywhere that have exploited the beard thing for no good reason. Like you're going to a fires desk in Al Udeed, bro. You don't need a beard. Okay. You're going to sit at a desk at DJ. You don't need a beard for that. You just want a beard because it looks cool.
I'm all about guys getting what they want, though. They can make it happen. It doesn't really affect anything. As long as they're professional while they have their beard, you know?
Right. Yep, for sure. And usually all it takes is like one, what is it? It's like an 05, like your commander can approve it. It's not even a high level thing. You just be like, hey, can we not shave and have a beard for this one? And he can say yes. So no big deal. Not exactly important, but Jalen Zien, what is the biggest difference in personalities between CCTs and PJs? Oh man. Okay. Well, let's see if I can find a way to make the CCT community hate me any more than they already do. I don't know. So it's definitely it's like a football team, right? On a football team, you have different personalities. It's like you're asking me like, what's the difference between quarterbacks and running backs, or what's the difference between wide receivers and tight ends? We do have, cultural differences between the career fields, and SR is the same, and Rangers are the same, and SEALs are the same. There's a bunch of cultural differences. If I'm trying to think through the difference between PJs and controllers, PJs, like stereotypically, PJs are way more hippie. They care more about human life. And then controllers, stereotypically, all they're there to do is drop bombs and kill people. And they're kind of like, the jocks. So if we're going to use like high school analogies, I'd say that the PJs are the preps and the combat controllers are kind of like the jocks. And then SERE is theater nerds. Because everybody's allowed to make fun of SERE. I'm sorry. Like, I saw this question last night and I started laughing because I was like, it made me think about inter-service rivalry, right? So from the inside, there's a ton of inter-service rivalry and we have all these jokes and we're like, okay, SEALs are going to write a book. The Rangers are, blunt instruments that are just like machine gunners and, their medics are good. Whatever. We have these things and those inter-service rivalries are funny, but no one from the outside is allowed to use those jokes. Like if you're not in those units, you're not allowed to make fun of those other units. So when I have like 18-year-olds that are not even in and haven't even assessed or selected yet, and they're like, well, yeah, I wanted to be a PJ because the SEALs are so unprofessional. What are you talking about? Like, whatever. But as I thought through this problem,
have you met there, guy?
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite too, is, every once in a while we'll get, a commenter or a follower that's just like, oh, listen, I got a friend that's in the tier 1 units, even the ones that you're not supposed to talk about. And he's laid it out for me pretty good. I'm like, well, I have doubt. However, okay, cool. But yeah, so to wrap that one up, there is one career field that everybody can make fun of, and it's SERE. Moving on. Highway.man. Can I just pay Cadre to give me the silly little hat? Boy, I wish.
Dude, I wish he shows up and calls it the silly little hat. That's another one of those things, like, I'm allowed to make fun of the hat. You are not allowed to make fun of the hat. And you're not allowed to call it silly.
Right, exactly. Well, yeah. We'll see how silly it becomes. The funny thing about that is, like, it is a bad hat, right? Like, it doesn't
it's
protect
terrible.
you from the sun. It doesn't protect you. It's not good in the winter. It makes you a target. People look at you funny all the time. There you go. Oh, this is a good one. What a tragedy. Who would you sacrifice for a ritual? Sir Trent, Sir Aaron, or Sir Peaches? And why?
Well, during a frequently asked questions or question thing, I'd sacrifice myself because these are ridiculous. I think Peaches would have to be the obvious choice because the gods might mistake him for a child, and I think they're usually looking for children.
I love it, man. Shout out to Balenciaga. Am I right? Let's get canceled today. What a crazy thing. Jesus Christ. What are we doing? What are we doing in this world? Nate Gladden, will either of you draw me like one of your French girls circa Titanic? First of all, you had me at yes. I'm in. Nate and I also agreed. So when USC lost last night and the possibility arose, like, and again, it's like Georgia is ridiculously good. Like, I know you don't watch college football. Alabama was super dominant for, I don't know, 2 decades, about a decade. Like Alabama was the only name in college football. They've kind of fallen off in the last 2 or 3 years. Georgia's ascendancy has been absolutely insane. They're like a pro team. It was like watching Alabama. I was positive that Alabama could have beat some of the Browns teams that they were playing, like in a straight up football game. Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt. And I said that while they were doing it. I was like, this Alabama team they would probably be favored going into a Browns game. But that's how Georgia is. So this little scenario that we're talking about where somehow Ohio State upsets Georgia, like that is a 1 to 10,000 long shot. I don't know what it is. But Nate and I actually agreed if Ohio State and Michigan play for the national championship, I want to say it's January 9th, we are going to meet up. We are going to fly somewhere and we're going to be in the same space and we're going live. So Nate, you're on. Here's a good one. Henderson Connor, a PJ and an SR guy get in a fight. The PJ has a rope. The SR guy has a quad drone. Who wins?
Probably the combat controller.
Because he chose not to play this little game.
Yeah.
That's a very meta comment. Who wins against the PJ and the SR guy? Peaches wins. You know why? Because he's not here.
Yeah.
he's not
the only winner in that is combat control. They end up getting all the Arcteryx stuff that just got shipped in because the PJ and the SR guy are too busy fighting.
100%. And a silver star. So Cola Tony, do you have to have good hair to get selected at A&S? This is an easy one. No, you don't have to, but it sure helps. Flynn _267.
Yes. Sorry.
Flynn _267. Can you guys dunk? Trent is short. Peaches can no. How is Peaches going to dunk?
If LeBron James put Peaches on his shoulders, then they could probably both dunk at the same time. Yeah.
That would actually be kind of cool to see. So I have been close before. If I trained for it, like if I actually trained in like explosive jumping, I think I could do it. I've been able to like jump and grab the rim before in my life. I've been able to, do like I'm somewhat athletic. I'm old, so probably not. Anyway,
yeah,
I love this one. Green Graham Mountain. F, marry, kill the ones ready hosts and each of the career fields.
Are we supposed to do that about ourselves?
I don't know. That's kind of weird, Like I'm narcissistic, but I also hate myself, so I would actually answer myself for all 3.
If I was looking at it from the outside, I'm trying to think.
We got to go kill me. Like that's the easiest one. Let's get that right out of the way.
I don't know, but
kill Aaron.
Like you're fit though and stuff, and you're tall. I think I'm the one that gets killed because if you're going to marry someone, it's going to be Peaches because he's the nicest person on earth and he's organized.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think I die.
Right. Yeah. He's very loving. Yeah, but why would you want to F me? Well, no, I don't know. I do a pretty good job of F-ing myself. People go for the crazies.
So. Yeah.
That's a good one. I love we played this game at the schoolhouse. Maybe I should back up. We would never play this game with students in a training environment.
Ever.
But let's say that there was a hypothetical scenario where we posed this question about the instructor staff to students, maybe after a really long NAV event, and we made them stand by a fire and we said, all right, F, marry, kill the people that you see here around the fire. And it was more than 3, so they could have a shot to say it. Almost all of them chose to marry the former Army Tier 1 operator that worked at the schoolhouse, except one. And he had a great reason. He goes, I want to kill him. And all of us were like, oh, really? Why? And he was like, it doesn't matter what I do with the rest of my life. If I kill that man, that lion with 18 deployments, I can marry and F whoever I want.
He's got a point.
Got a great point. I've never forgotten that. Shout out to that potential student. I'm not going to read this one.
Which one was it? Which one is it that you're not going to read?
Okay, I'll do it. DeGooch66. Have any of you ever had an STD while in Aspect War? What a ridiculous question.
Look, I've already told your mom. She didn't get that from me. All right?
I can't wait until this is a bunch of reels that we can't ever release as a full podcast. It's going to be great.
I'm sorry,
you
Peaches.
must follow. so sorry. Oh man. To lead, you must follow Aaron versus Tim Kennedy. Who wins? Jiu-jitsu, of course. I love getting questions like this. Guys, gals that are listening, if anybody's listening, I am a hobbyist. I don't even roll in tournaments anymore. I am a 42-year-old guy. Tim Kennedy is a professional UFC fighter and a legit jiu-jitsu black belt. Also, he outweighs me by a solid like 25 pounds. So I'm probably going to lose that one unless he lets me win, which he would not. So I am losing that pretty quick. I might be able to stall him out for maybe a minute. I don't know if Tim, that would be a more appropriate question. Does Aaron last more than a minute with Tim Kennedy? Maybe I would be able to scramble, and it would depend gi or no gi. Maybe I'd be able to scramble with a black belt for more than a minute. But you're talking like a tournament black belt, like Gordon Ryan get out of here. It's a different game.
That's such a weird question. Like, I think something happens where they're people's public personalities. Like, even if you perceive Tim Kennedy as like a giant D-bag, right?
Right.
You can't pretend that he's not an incredibly dangerous person in hand-to-hand combat. Like, you've seen it in the cage with the best in the world. And yeah,
I've seen Tim Kennedy train before. I was at the Onnit gym the same space as Tim Kennedy. He is a madman. He is a madman. Like, you can, again, his social media presence, I don't agree with it. Some of the things that he said and done, I don't agree with him. Guess what? I don't know the man, but I've been around him and I've seen him train. And I'll tell you what, you can talk whatever shit you want online. You might want to keep that to yourself when you're around him. I'll just say that. So
I think the better question would be who would win between him and Jocko if they were rolling.
Ooh, I think
Jocko's a gorilla.
He's got weight on him too. I think Jocko's heavier than Tim Kennedy. I'd have to look it up, but Jocko is not a small guy.
Yeah.
Jocko and Echo Charles are both, I want to say they're both north of 220. Tim ain't that heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I would want to see. That's what they should do.
AFSW frown on
I'm sorry.
Oh, your lag is killing me. It's good. It's going to be good today. I'm sure nobody will mention this in the comments. Does AFSW frown on operators trying out for the Army's Tier 1 unit?
No.
I've had people that were on my flights come to me and ask to go to this selection, and I help them. But I'm like, yeah, 100%. You should. You should. It's easy to find when the selection dates are. I've had there's a security forces guy, as a matter of fact, in the Air Force that went and tried out for that unit. I was happy to assist him in any way that I could. It's one of the best things ever. We've had multiple PJs make it. I don't know of any controllers that have went assaulter up there off the top of my head, but I assume there has to be one or two. I just happen to know a couple PJs that got picked up, so I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. Aaron's weakness in the pipeline. Ooh, easiest one. And then Trent, think about your answer too. We'll turn it over to you because it's the same question. Aaron's weakness in the pipeline, it was everything. It was inexperience. It was I had never shot a pistol before I got into the Air Force. I'd never climbed on a rope. I'd never climbed a mountain. I was a swimmer, but I'd never scuba dove. I didn't even travel outside of Ohio other than one trip. When I was 15, I drove with my grandma and grandpa Kilroy across the nation, like the southern route, and then across the nation, the northern route. That was the extent of me seeing the world before I enlisted in the Air Force in 2001. So everything was new to me. I didn't have any experience or exposure to the military. I had no exposure to special operations. I had no idea what I was doing for anything. So everything that I did really was brand new. And I struggled through. You can look on my class plaque, which is still hanging up at the schoolhouse, and it has the way the phases were broken out. It was like I think we did mountain first, and then medicine, and then blah 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 blah. Right? And there was a picture of me. It's a cartoon, and I'm squatting, and like underneath a bar, and it said I'll outshoot, and then it was like line through because I couldn't shoot. And then it was like out climb, and then climb was line through. And then it was like I'll out medicine, and then line through. And then it was, out, jump, or, out air ops, and it was line through. It was like every single phase had this little line. And at the end, it just said, I'll just be stronger than the enemy. Because that was the only strength really that I had for the pipeline. So my weakness was everything. And I'm proud to say that I've fixed none of those weaknesses, and I'm still a piece of crap. Trent, what was yours?
I don't like to jump into things full bore, events that I'm not comfortable with. So I always struggle with that kind of stuff. But like once I get comfortable with stuff, I'm okay. But the usual, like I played soccer growing up, so aerobically I was good, but upper body strength needed work, and just things you need to focus on. But I have a hard time when like presented with a new problem set with new skill sets, and they're like ready, set, 100% go right now. That's makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the SR student episode too. That's something you got to get over in the pipeline, because there's a million times where you're presented with brand new information on Monday and you're tested on that on Friday. And sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's mental, but you're given a lot of information, and then you're immediately like, okay, show me that you learned it. And you're like, whoa, we just learned this. I remember going through paramedic school. I was testing, I think, for tech. Yeah, so I was testing for tech in paramedic school, and it was during the cardiology phase. We had a test on Monday. I had my WAPS test was on Friday of that week. So we tested on Monday, but we had another test in paramedic school in cardiology. It was like a different rhythm or something on Friday. I was studying. I just looked at my spouse at the time, and I was like, hey, I can either pass this course or I can try to get promoted, but I can't do both. I cannot study for both of these tests in any real way. She was like, well, you got to focus on the cardiology test. But that stuff happens. You're going to do that your entire pipeline. And sometimes it's physical. They might teach you a skill on Monday in the pool and be like, okay, cool. Well, your first evaluation, no kidding, is on Friday. So pay attention. Yep. Do your work.
Yep.
Yeah. So
you get better at it. It's just like anything else, though. In the beginning, it's going to be super uncomfortable. But the more times that you're presented something new and that you have to test on it quickly, it's just like any other muscle. You work it out and you get more comfortable in that environment.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to teach people to be good adult learners, to take in that information. And we've touched on it a couple times on the podcast before, but when people ask us, what can we do to get better? What can we do to prepare for the pipeline? Become a good adult learner, even if it's just reading stuff to take in that information, even if it's just being able to take information in quickly and apply it. Being an adult learner is a necessary skill, not only in life, but really in the pipeline, because you are learning everything at lightning speed all the time. And then you're expected to retain that to some certain level. And we've talked about that before too. It's not good enough. The way that our training is set up is you achieve a standard, and then you're expected to maintain that standard no matter what.
Yep.
Like it might be months since you touched a rope, but if somebody comes in and is like, hey, we're going to do one man today, there's a standard for that. You have to meet that standard.
Yep. All right. You still there?
Let's see. Oh yeah. The Lost Prince. What's the funniest thing either of you remember someone doing during your time in the AF? I mean, I have too many. I'd have to think about that. I have too many times that I've just laughed myself. I take it back. I can remember a time where I laughed so hard that I almost puked. As we're in one of the government vans, one of the GWOTs, 15-seat blue standard old. I don't even who makes those vans. Were they Chevys or Fords, or who made those vans?
Oh, they were Chevys. We were on the Chevy train for a while, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, just your standard, and it's like in complete disrepair. Like you have no idea how you're driving around. Like, how is this thing even driving? What does it do anyway?
Garbage.
Well, and to make matters worse, we're in England, up in Lowestoft, and we're about to go. They had a pool there that could simulate environments. They use it for their commercial fishermen, but they could make waves, lightning, weather. They had, recovery devices. So they had like the nets that they would use in order for people to climb on board the ship. And it was pretty rough, actually. Like you could simulate really, really rough seas in a pool environment. So it was fun. We're getting ready to go, driving this huge, stupid 15-passenger van. And there is a uni that's right next door. So a university, which is, I want to say it's grades, I don't know, 11 11, 12, 10, 11, 12, and like for college freshmen all in this one little area. There was like a college that was there as well. And we were the absolute dumbest Americans that we could be. One of our friends that was a young single man saw a nice English lady that seemed to catch his eye. And he was like, you know what? I just want to holler at this shorty. And one of the other married guys in there was just like, made this weird noise. He's like, shorty, 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 inside of this van. And I don't know why. That was one of the funniest things. That became the funniest team joke that we used literally for years. When you're going to holler at a shorty, you just start like, and then it turned into this little dance where you like grab your belt buckle and kind of like, shorty, 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 shorty. Hilarious. Hilarious. There's no way. And now as I'm explaining that, that's not funny to anybody. Like, I can't explain that.
No. I'm trying to think, like, most of the time we're so sleep deprived when, like, I start laughing that hard.
Right.
Like, none of the situations, looking back, I'm like, that's not that funny.
Right.
But, like, I was so tired. They were so, like.
That's the beauty of it, is that there are jokes. There are things out there. There's a quote that says, to those that need an explanation, there's no explanation that will suffice. To those that understand, no explanation is necessary. That's kind of like what team jokes are. You'll try to explain to somebody outside the culture or outside. You'd be like, oh, no, you don't understand. So this guy almost died by falling off this cliff. And instead of getting scared, he was like, well, that was almost a boo-boo. And we all laughed about it. And then we got shot at. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way. People are like, yeah, that guy almost died. Oh, God. But no. You got to, no, but it was really funny. Like, there was at the time, he was a Saudi guy. We were driving in a Humvee. This guy literally, under nods, almost drove us off of, it looked like an arroyo. And he barely missed it. He barely like corrected at the very end, but it turned out to be like a 50-foot drop. Like we would have died, like straight up dead. And he literally like stopped, and we were all sleep deprived out. I mean, it was at the end of a long exercise, and he literally just in his nods turned to us and goes, "Hey, my bad boys. I'll grab a beer at Chili's later." And then we just went on with life, and we all laughed like idiots. "Hey, my bad boys. I almost killed us all. I'll grab you a beer at Chili's later." There was no Chili's. that wasn't even a thing. Like, we were going back to Connex villages and stuff. Like, we were there for like another 2 weeks. And that's just what he said at the time, totally deadpan under nods. Like, those things are they're funny, but it's not something that you would put on it. Like, if I tried to explain that to anybody, they'd be like, why did you laugh at that? That's stupid. Because it was stupid. It was funny.
It was pretty funny.
That gets us to the end of these weird questions.
That's it.
Oddly enough. That is, I know, yeah. They were a bunch of weird ones, but we got to make fun of some of them and just press on, so it went by quickly. You got anything to
disturbing is Nate Gladden is visualizing you and him steaming up some windows right now.
I hope so.
Y'all have this like weird like love-hate thing going on.
Yeah, because I'm love, and for a period of the year I hate him. I actually did have a good we had him on the podcast, so Justin Gordon, SERE guy extraordinaire, good dude. Mm-hmm. He texted me because we text every year during the game, as well as I do with a lot of my team up north friends. And he asked me specifically, hey, are you going to cheer for Michigan in the national championship? Because it's a weird thing in the Midwest. Once your team is eliminated, you are contractually obligated to cheer for the next Big Ten team that has a chance of doing something. But it was too close. It was too close to Ohio State losing to Michigan at home as a number 2 team. So he was like, you going to cheer for Michigan? I was like, give me a week. Well, I can tell you now, I'm most certainly not cheering for Michigan. Well, actually, I'll cheer for Michigan in the first round because I want that championship game to happen. But there you go.
All right.
Solid. I don't think we can ever release this one, but it was fun to talk to you.
Well, I mean, it's early-ish. It's early for you. It's not really early for me. And we're answering these weird questions. I don't know. Did we say anything that bad? I don't think we said anything that bad. I made one mom joke. That's it. Yeah.
I did mention the Balenciaga scandal. I cannot believe that that's going on. Man, those one wood chipper would fix all of Balenciaga's problems, and I'm here for it. So I'll make that joke again. Like, it's crazy to me to see that, like, so, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about all of the things like the hyper awareness of the media on everything. And it takes 2 seconds. It took 2 seconds for Adidas to drop Ye, right? Ye is insane too, by the way. That guy needs help. But it took 2 seconds for Adidas to drop Ye and to stop his bank accounts and to do all this other stuff. Not a single celebrity is out there talking about we don't stain with Balenciaga. We took away our sponsorships. Nothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty sick.
Dude, unreal. You know me in my conspiratorial mind. Sometimes
it's not a conspiracy. It's
not
ad campaign. They put it out there on purpose. It's not like I'm tired of people saying conspiracies. Like that's not a conspiracy. That's real.
Yeah. The difference between a conspiracy theorist and a normal person in today's society is about 6 months. The things that I was saying 6 months ago, lo and behold, have all come true. And those were a conspiracy theory where they started. Well,
I think that time frame is getting shorter and shorter. Like, people are coming around.
Yeah. The Twitter stuff is wild too. I love how Elon is just, I'm here for the chaos. Burn it down, fire everybody, publish all the internals. Let's go. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, we need to have these conversations. Like, it's one of those weird things. I know you're a little more comfortable with like the political stuff on Instagram and all that other thing. Like for me, I just don't want to go down negative rabbit holes all the time. Like, this is what's messed up. This is what, like, if I just go stay in that headspace, it jacks me up. But
it's dark, man. There's darkness out there. And when I first started kind of my journey into where I am now, it was through a couple of different, like the Tinfoil Hat podcast, Eddie Bravo. There were a couple more out there that really opened my eyes a couple years ago to where I sort of understood wave tops, and I knew that politics was overall corrupt, and I knew that some of the things that we were doing weren't the best, right? But man, when you start talking about, the difference between the blue pill and the red pill, and which one would you take, man, you get too involved in that. I can totally understand how people got wrapped up in some of the crazy, like the QAnon thing that happened over the course of 2 or 3 years. Like, I totally understand how people connecting dots that aren't there and see, like, because there's plenty of dots to connect. There are plenty of things out there that you're like, this is obviously not true, right?
Yeah.
But there's also plenty of dots out there that should be connected, and you should be like, no, that's not a fake thing. That's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those. I mean, I like to look at people that I disagree with on like the political level that I agree with on like the ethics level these days, like if I listen to Jimmy Dore, whatever his name is, like he doesn't agree with me on politics, but we can both agree on who's all corrupt, which is like basically everybody, like, but Dave Smith, I'm pretty cool with Dave Smith. He's hilarious too.
Yeah, there are a couple podcasts that I listen to pretty frequently or daily, and one of them is I love Matt Walsh, so he's a Daily Wire guy, but he's got a very deadpan sense of humor. But he was talking about politics in general, and somebody made the comment about a politician that you wouldn't want to have a beer with him. Like, oh well, you wouldn't want to have a beer with this person, and he was like, of course I don't want to have a beer with him. I hate all politicians, all of them. I hate the politics world in general. I want you to mirror my ethics, my values. I want you to vote for me the way that I think society should go. We're a constitutional republic. We're a representative republic. I want you to vote for me. I don't want to have a beer with you. If you want empathy, get a dog. I want somebody to vote for my interests. And if you don't, the second that you do, I will throw you by the wayside, and I will find somebody that will. That's pretty close to home of where I am on politics these days.
It's weird. Like, I don't subscribe to parties and all that other stuff. I think one of the things that people are missing out there is they want to jump on like surface level issues and make that part of their identity. And those are the things that they really care about. If you don't take the time to really figure out what your ethics and morals and values are that don't change, like if you don't have a bedrock, then you just shift with the tide back and forth, and you just listen to whatever news network is you've decided is your news network. Because if like if you're like, I support this party 100% of the time, like I'm like, I have nothing in common with you. I can't support,
no,
like that. A party is not a thing. A party is not a moral or an ethic or a value. And so You know, like people getting mad because certain people gave money to like Tulsi Gabbard. It's like, well, why'd you give money? She's a Democrat. And it's like, but Tulsi Gabbard's a fantastic human. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, you're not going to agree with someone on everything. It's ridiculous. So if I was going to give any advice to anybody, assuming that any of this ever gets released, is like take time to figure out your own morals and ethics and values and look at individuals as individuals, look at what the true problems are, and then vote accordingly. Vote with, both with your wallet and with your ballot.
Exactly. And the two-party system that we have was never intended by the founders. This was never intended to be a thing. There was always meant to be a free and open public square where ideas could be exchanged, and then you would vote for the policies that you like. And I get that we're so polarized now between left and right that it may seem like one party always does these things, so I'm going to vote for that party, and the other party always does these things. Man, you got to step outside of your own mind. You got to step outside of those biases in that system and find a way to engage and be a citizen of the United States. Like you were not a citizen of the Republican Party. You're not a citizen of the Democratic Party or the Liberal Party. Like you're just not. You're a citizen of America. We have documents that lay out what we're supposed to do as American citizens. Feel free to act on that behalf and as outside of party lines, be your own person. It's totally fine.
Yeah, and stop calling representatives leaders. They're not leaders; they're representatives.
Man, I don't know what I don't know when I had this thought. It was within the last 5 years. I'm older than you need to be president. I'm older than a lot of these representatives and these leaders that are in Congress. Like these people have zero life experience. There are people that are career politicians that have never made anything on their own, that have literally lived with their parents their entire life, and then somehow happened into a political appointment at 45 years of age. Get out of here. I can't, you don't have any, it's like listening to celebrities for moral guidance. It's like when celebrities tongue wag me over things. Like you don't hold any moral authority over me. You're an actor.
Yeah, you pretend to be people for whatever.
Get out of here. Like, go make your stupid movie, clown. Like I pay you to entertain me. Like let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, that makes me think of something I was thinking about the other day about my imposter syndrome stuff. And I was like, well, what makes us different than anybody else? And why is it important that we do what we do? And because I'm always trying to like ask myself, like, why would anybody even listen to anything I say? But the fact of the matter is, I do have almost 20 years experience in the Air Force, in the special operations community, you know, deployments and training and all that other stuff. And that's the difference between, you know, good advice that's nuanced, and then the advice that's just like academic or made up or whatever. Like if you're listening to people that have no experience in that realm, like I don't know what you're doing. And it's not that they don't know what they're talking about sometimes, but some of the conclusions that they're going to reach are going to be 180 degrees off, right? Mm-hmm. Like who was that dude that made those documentaries, like a Bowling for Columbine or whatever?
Michael Moore,
the big fat dude.
Yeah, Michael Moore.
I can watch a Michael Moore movie and agree with everything he points out as a problem. But his conclusions, because Michael Moore is a big fat dude that doesn't live in reality, are 180 degrees off from what the actual solutions should be. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. And that's just a product of his lack of experience in the real world, in my opinion. That's my opinion. Michael Moore, don't sue me.
Well, who cares? It doesn't matter. Nobody listens to this anyway. So you're right. It's it is a funny thing. Is that of all people, like, because I feel the exact same way, right? Like when people are like, you know, they'll talk about, and I said this to a person the other day that I was interacting with in person. So we were talking about stuff and they kind of were picking my brain about GWOT. We were like totally benign in Ohio at a party, right? And they were telling me how they're like, well, we shouldn't be over there and we shouldn't do this, we should do that. And, you know, this was a mistake and this was a mistake. I was like, hey, I love this conversation and I'll have it with you all day, but do me a favor. Can you tell me what it smells like in the Helmand province? And he looked at me and he was just like, what do you mean? I was like, what does it smell like in Helmand? I was like, it can't Bastion. What did it smell like there? Yeah. And he just kind of looked and I was like, man, I've been there. Like, so you can have these theories. You can tell me these things, but I've been all around Afghanistan and Iraq and Africa and these other places that you're talking about in these hoity-toity political science sort of terms. So like you may think you're smarter than me, college boy, but there's something to be said for that experience. And it's kind of the other thing too, is the Air Force and this life has given me the opportunity to go to something like 5 continents at this point.
Yeah.
to spend time, no kidding, in Europe, spend time in Africa, and a lot of places, in those areas, see all of the United States, and some people don't venture out of their homes, don't venture out of their geographic location other than vacations here or there. And they think that they can tell you these things as if they're true. Like people, I don't know when that happened, but it's a weird thing that we will, at the same time, we'll have this imposter syndrome of being like, well, maybe I don't know everything. And, maybe there are some other philosophies or optics that I really need to take in. But at the same time, you're like, but wait, this experience is valid. I have seen these things that you're just talking about. I've lived those things, and we can make whatever hyperbolic sort of example here, but like we've done them.
Yeah. But there's like two people I run into on a regular basis. It's the person that like wants to apologize to me because they never served. And so like, for some reason they like have like way more imposter syndrome than I do. They're like, well, I can't say anything about it because I never served in the military. It's like, no. Like you still get an opinion. Totally, you're an American, and I want to hear what you have to say. And then there's the people that also never served that want to preach at you like I'm an idiot because I'm in the military. I was like, dude, right. like you were talking about, like I can smell Afghanistan. Like there's the dust, there's the crap, and then there's like those like really beautiful moments where things smell fresh and clean and,
crisp, like clean, fresh air, nobody around you for miles, like flying through some of those passes. Yeah. Crazy. Beautiful.
Some of the most beautiful country you've ever been in. But like don't, I don't know where I was going with that. The person that wants to preach at me, it's weird, but like, I've been there and like, so, that's what I was going to say. Like, I can see it from both sides. Like, do I think maybe I don't think that we should have been in Afghanistan, but do I think that we made a positive impact on certain people while I was there? Yeah. And do I have empathy and sympathy for those people? Not just the people that we were trying to help, but also maybe I have a lot of respect for the people that were shooting at me as well. Because I kind of understand where they're coming from. And I respect the fact that they wanted to shoot at us knowing what the outcome was going to be, more than likely.
Yeah. Right. So, and our ideologies might be different, but it's two sides of the same coin. Those dudes that got paid, $20 by the Taliban to rip off an AK magazine at some passing American forces and paid for it with their life. Like, man, you can dehumanize that guy as much as you want, but that was a human. That was a human that was put to a terrible choice for whatever reason. And whether he was no kidding, dyed in the wool freedom fighter, at least in his own mind, or if he was put in some terrible position because of his lot in life, you can't look at that in any other way but just sadness and sympathy and empathy. There's no way to be an American service member that's like, oh, I'm going to go overseas and fight and die for my country. There's no way for you to separate that from those fighters that we fought in GWOT for that entire time. They're the same person. They're like, getting to that realization is hard for some because they want to hold on and be like, well, no, but we're righteous. Okay, but they felt like they were righteous too. So,
are you telling me that if you'd grown up in Afghanistan, you would, like if I'd grown up in Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure I know, based on my personality makeup, what I would have ended up doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the easiest way in those conversations is like, okay, so let's say China invades the United States of America. What do? I know what I do. I start an insurgency. I know what that looks like. I know how to do that. That's an easy one. You don't let somebody come into your country, a sovereign country, and take your country over. Now, granted, there's a lot of nuance here, but that's the easiest way. It's the easiest thought experiment. Okay, well, what would you do? You're just going to turn your guns over to the new PRC authorities and call it good and just assimilate to Chinese life here in Tacoma, Washington? Get out of here. No,
well, there are leaders now. There are leaders. You have to listen to your leaders.
They're here to liberate us.
But what if they're on TV telling you what to do? Don't you have to listen to them if they're on TV?
Yo, the stuff coming out of China is crazy too. Big shout out to the Chinese protesters. I hope. Now listen, I don't hope for death. I don't hope for war. I've made that very clear a bunch of times. But what I would say is if maybe an entire country started revolting and took away their ability to be a pacing challenge to the United States of America, I would be for that. I would appreciate a level of freedom that China has not seen up until this point. I would appreciate that. I think that people deserve to be free. I think the COVID lockdowns need to end. I think some of their authoritarian and communism practices have to go away. And I'm glad to see the white paper revolution happening.
It's one of those things, right? I don't hate the people of China. I'm not mad at like the regular guys in whatever country that shoot at me. There just seems to be this group of people above everybody that's causing all the issues. You know what I mean?
We've covered a lot of ground. We've covered, a lot of misinformation. We've covered a lot of things that we talked about.
Were we putting out the misinformation? Is that what was happening?
I don't know. There's no way to tell anymore. You know, it's really just a couple of people talking, and then somebody's going to say it's true or it isn't. Do you want to just round it out and talk about the deep state? Is that where we're going? Do we need to talk about Russia, Ukraine? No? Okay, cool.
So the deep state is the permanent government class. Yeah.
Well, I used to poo-poo that. Back in the day, this is the second time I said poo-poo. That's number 3. Back in the day when people were like, oh, there's a deep state. I'm like, all right, you dork. There is no group of men and women sitting in they don't have these meetings behind closed doors where people are like, man, this is what we're going to do. How naive was I? There are unelected and unappointed officials and oligarchs in America that work for big tech, that work for big pharma, that work for any number of agencies that have outsized power with no term limits and influence that they should not have. If Donald Trump as president proved anything, it is that there is a coordinated effort against the mainstream narrative. You can say whatever you want about Mr. Trump, fine, but he proved that the big tech and media architecture will rally against something that they don't like, and they'll be successful. And that's what the deep state is.
Every organization and organism will fight for its own survival.
Mm-hmm.
I would say with wherever you fall on the political spectrum, and this is usually where I start to agree with people, is when you start to consolidate power and money, which is synonymous, into a single entity or place, that's where things get tricky. And if you look at our founding documents that I swore to uphold and defend, which is why I can talk about them here without naming politicians by name or anything, that's not the way that the country was set up. It was supposed to be decentralized command or execution, right?
Checks and balances. All three. Yeah. The fact that the legislature, so the Congress and Senate is supposed to write laws. They are supposed to make legislation. The judicial branch is supposed to make sure that that legislation is fair and just and rule on whether or not the citizens should have to abide by it. And the administrative branch of the government, being the president, has outsized power. We basically outsourced all of our legislative powers to the administrative branch of government. That's not how it's supposed to be.
Well, it's not all supposed to be at the federal level either, which is one of the like when I listen to like Joe Rogan, right? And I'll admit it, I listen to Joe. I think, has it become like cool to not listen to Joe Rogan now? I'm assuming it has, since he's so popular.
I guess so. I don't know. Yeah,
but I think he has like a fundamental misunderstanding of how the country is supposed to work. And he's always like, well, the president is like the hardest job. Like, you're in charge of the entire country. And I'm like, Joe, he's not the king. No. The federal government is not supposed to run everything about your daily life. They're not supposed to really affect the citizens directly at all. That's why we have states. That's why it's called the United States of America, because the states are supposed to almost run like independent countries, working together for a common goal. And the common goal is very limited.
You're right. And those states, you're supposed to be able to travel in between those states. Why? Because if you don't like the way that state is governed, you get to move to a different state. That's why they wrote it in, that you can't be stopped from movement. Your habeas writ corpus cannot move, or can't be stopped from moving from one state to another. You cannot be held in one state. If you don't like it, go move. The federal oversight that is happening, and you're dead on, was never the intent. Fun historical fact. After George Washington won the American Revolution, they wanted to make him king. So if you go to Washington, D.C., and you look at all the paintings and all of the things, he is presented almost as a deity, and he turned it down. He was like, nope, I'm going to retire. George Washington is the reason we have presidential term limits, because famously he was like, no, I'm going to be president for this amount of time, and I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm not going to be president forever. And it's funny how we've lost that. Like the two-party system that Alexander Hamilton, through the Federalist Papers, completely railed against. the things that we're doing these days completely and totally outside of what the documents prescribe and what we're supposed to be as a nation. And it's evident in all of the upheaval over everything. We're like, oh, we need to make this federally legal. No, you don't. No, you do not. If a state doesn't want to do it, don't go to that state. Don't go live in that state. It's that easy.
Yeah. And we're seeing that now. The states still have a certain amount of autonomy and power, because you see people moving from one state to another state, whether, they're moving from Texas to California or vice versa, based on what's going on.
Nobody's moving from Texas to California.
I just wanted to say it. I don't know.
Not a single person. You're trying to be fair and balanced here.
I am.
Nobody's moving to California. People are fleeing those states. Like California is a hellscape that's about to implode, and they have had the biggest loss of population in the history of California over the last 2 years because the governance there is trash. I don't hate the people of California. They have a mental health problem that's wrapped up as a homeless problem, and people are fleeing that state for places like Texas and places with better governance. And it's evident in Florida too. The New York state is bleeding population. Where are they going? Florida. Where do New York politicians go on vacation when they've locked their own states down? Shout out AOC. Florida. You know why? Because they're governed better. Because it's closer to what you're supposed to be in America, which is a free and sovereign citizen of the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. And if the federal government doesn't get involved, then the states that are poorly governed will have to face the consequences of that. So like if you go bankrupt, the federal government is not supposed to come in and bail a state out like they have, over and over and over again. You got to let it fail and let them rebuild. So I just noticed we're over an hour. Like we could probably keep going on. This is a whole different podcast that we need to start. What should we name our conspiracy theory / government podcast that we're going to do?
I don't even know. I'll start, Trent and Aaron loves America. I don't know. We're
dude, that's my favorite. I'm writing that down. Trent and Aaron loves America.
We'll have to figure it out. We got some other stuff coming for y'all that you don't even see yet. We got big stuff on the horizon. I think we're probably going to have to make this into a bunch of reels, or maybe some smaller clips or some smaller bite-sized pieces to make it coherent, because we did cover a lot of ground in this one.
But as always, it was a great time. I think I'm finally waking up. I'm almost done with my coffee, and we start talking about like government, and I'm like, I get all excited.
I just finished mine as well, so thank goodness. Well, I will say, if anybody is listening, shout out.
At PME, when we started talking about history and government, that's when I try real hard to not sound preachy, but I'm really not good at it. Because like I'll sit back in my chair and they'll be like, well, we're going to start off with like where our government came from, and we're going to talk about the Magna Carta. I'm like, oh yeah, first one, 1215. And they look at me like, what is wrong with you? Like, why would you know that? I'm like, because I care about stuff.
Because I love America. Because it's a part of who I am. This is a funny thing too, is, when I was growing up, it was really important for us to always tell people, and they'd be like, oh, what nationality are you? Like, oh, I'm Irish. So both of my grandparents on the Kilroy side, obviously, so grandma, grandpa Kilroy, shout out. So they obviously were like one generation out. Like parents and uncles and aunts and stuff still live in Ireland, and I still have family in a couple of counties there, yada yada. Man, I don't tell people that anymore. I never told my kids they were Irish. But like, oh, your grandma and grandpa are Irish. You're an American. I tell, where are you from? I'm an American. Oh, well, where were your ancestors from? I don't know. 3 generations ago, they were from Ireland, but it was a long time ago. They came over here because they didn't want to be Irish. They wanted to have that as part of their culture, but they wanted to be an American. They wanted to assimilate to our culture and have the opportunities that America grants to them. And they want to be part of this American experiment. And that doesn't mean that you throw your nationality away. It means that you fold that in to the fabric of America. And that's the thing that you see that's a big problem now, is that people bring their culture to America and then want you to assimilate to their culture. Like, that's not how it is. It's not racist. It's not xenophobic. It's not nationalist to say any of these things. It is just a fact of the matter.
Do you know what I think part of the problem is? This is the part that we're definitely not going to be able to release. We make it so hard to come over here and become a citizen. Like, and I get it that people are not supposed to cross the border illegally. But if you took all the people that have jobs and are coming here for the right reasons, and you just gave them citizenship, and you erase that weird illegal population that we got going on, that are literally just here to make their lives better, I think you'd get rid of a whole lot of that. Because that's what we did in the 80s. We just granted citizenship to everybody. But then you run into other problems with like minimum wage and all those other things that Milton Friedman warned us about. But
right. Well, we talk about what the government is supposed to do, right? The federal government is only supposed to do two things: protect our borders and protect the citizens of the United States of America and those borders. That's it. So you're not that far off. So all we have to do, if you secure the border and then you provided a path to citizenship for everybody that, like, I'm willing to hear it. Now, this gets a little bit different. In 1980, we didn't have 5 million people crossing the border in a single 1 year period, which we did this last year. So that's an issue. But providing a social safety net for people that have entered this country outside of that path to citizenship is not what the federal government is supposed to do. And it's surely not the state's job to do it. So I agree with you 100%. I have no problem with people, I want people to immigrate to America. I want there to be an easier path to citizenship. All of those other really nuanced sort of arguments about, a living minimum wage or, how are we going to support a social safety net for these people? Those things are answered by simply going back to those documents. What is the federal government here to do? Secure the border, number one. Number two, protect the citizens of the United States of America and provide a minimum social safety net for those Americans. I would say that your contention here to, provide a path to citizenship that isn't as restrictive, man, I'm in for that. Like, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what that looks like and let's formalize it.
Well, who gains from having a large permanent illegal population? Mm-hmm. Like, ask yourself that question, and then you'll probably start finding some answers. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
all right, man.
Sorry.
Well,
yeah.
I can't wait to tell Peaches that we just turned the podcast off. Congratulations. Congratulations. This is the podcast is no longer a thing. I'm glad that we got a lot of content in the bank so that we can just throw this one away. I feel like it was a good talk, though. I feel like there's going to be some good snippets.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hashtag balenciaga.
Hashtag Balenciaga. Dude. I can't get over how wild that is. Can't get over what world we live in right now. I am not a religious person, as you know. There is no other way to describe what Balenciaga is doing other than demonic, other than like blatantly. I don't know. Like, I don't want to say satanic. Demonic is the closest that I can get to it. Like, man, it is morally and ethically abhorrent what they're doing. Like, and that is coming from a straight. What?
Why do you have that giant cross tattooed on your chest then? I don't understand.
I wish that was true. I'm going to go get one. You know what I had to get? I'm going to go get the coexist sticker that's on every Subaru. Like, you have to put it on there when you get a Subaru with all of, like, there's the Star of David and the cross. And I'm going to get that. Just big chest piece right across my chest. Just coexist. Just huge. It's going to be so good.
You know that John Bernthal movie, The Pilgrim? You ever see that one where he has that giant cross tattooed on his back? That's what you should get. Yes. But then you have to be like shredded like that dude.
Crap. Have you listened to Real Ones with John Bernthal?
That's what I'm not here to like send people away from our podcast to go listen to other people, but they should definitely be checking him out. Cause like that dude is like one of my favorite people right now.
Oh my God. So I listen to two podcasts. Every once in a while you listen to a podcast and it, no kidding, changed your life, right? So my friend Paul Alcoby, we're going to bring him on. So Paul hit me up and he sent me the link to Shia LaBeouf's podcast on Real Ones. And I was like, okay, I'll listen. It's a 2-hour podcast. You say what you want. Shia LaBeouf has a troubled past. He talks about all that. That podcast changed my life. He said some things in there that I thought were specific and unique to me and that no one has ever said before, that existed only in my head. He said those things out loud on that podcast. I had to pause it a couple times and really just like collect myself and be like, holy crap. The latest one that they put out that also was just as good. I'm trying to look. It's Marine Raider Nick, and I'm going to mess your name up here, Nick. I'm sorry.
Kumalatas.
Yes. Did you listen to that podcast?
I haven't listened to that one yet.
Bro, that thing is wild. I was on a plane. I downloaded it before a plane flight, one of the many plane flights that I've taken. I think it might have been going to Ohio, or maybe it was the trip before that. It blew my mind. It put me in such a space that I got off the plane and I was walking through a dream through that airport, just thinking about how heavy and how good that podcast is. I'm going to shoot my shot with this Nick fellow. I'm going to try to pronounce his name here because it's always fun. Kumalatsos, I think.
No, he's good people.
Look, but yeah, and the things that he was saying, man, like they reverberated with me in such a way that I was just like, holy crap. It was another one. The Real Ones podcast, shout out. You don't need us. Nobody's listening to us to get free promo for you, but man, what a great podcast. Great couple episodes too. So there you go.
Man, we are like brothers. It's weird.
We really are. We really are.
It's creepy.
Well, and it's a funny thing too. And I mean, we've talked about everything else. We might as well like breach into religion for a long time. Like I'd been searching for a higher power or whatever else. And, my logical mind, I'm like, well, there's all these things that speak against it. I've evolved to a point now where it's almost like there's too many things that cannot possibly be a coincidence to be in your life, for things to be disordered and whatever else. I don't know if I'm ready to go down the route of there is a specific thing that is involved in my life personally that acts on my behalf yet. Like, I don't think I can get there. But I'll tell you what, like the fact that you and I found each other and we match each other's energy and we've had such a good relationship, and the fact that you came into my life through all events, good, bad, indifferent, tragic, happy, man, to deny that there is not some sort of order, that there is not some sort of reason. When you talk with somebody and you're like, man, you and I just click, you cannot deny that energy. You can't deny the feeling of momentum. If you think, we talked about sports earlier, like you can't describe or quantify momentum, but you can sure as shit feel it when it's happening. Like when Michael Jordan was in the zone, like you don't know what in the zone feels like, but you know what it looks like. Like
you just know,
man, that pit in your stomach when you're on target and you can feel tactical momentum slipping away from you. And you're like, we need to get out of here. This needs to be over right now. We need to leave. Yep. I don't know how to tell people you can't train that, but where does that energy come from? When we talk about Balenciaga and we talk about how that is morally wrong, that is repugnant. We know that is not right. Where does that come from? That's a question.
Well, it goes back to your values. Like, right. Do you value people, and do you value innocence, and do you value, all these other things? And, if you're just riding on the river of values and you don't have anything, then, things get weird. But yeah, whether there's a higher power or not, like I think people are, and I think this is where we bond a lot, is people are the most important thing, and searching for truth, which is weird because like people want to find truth outside of themselves. But I'm like, if you don't find your truth, and this sounds so woo-woo, if you don't find your own truth within yourself, right? Like, but if like you don't figure out like why you think the way you think and why you act the way you act, and figure out all your biases and all these little things to get to where you can most objectively view the world and figure out what you care about, then you're just subject to the winds of change, as the Scorpions said.
Fantastic Scorpions reference. One of the best. I just love, they had the video of the Berlin Wall coming down in that video. Like I that is an iconic video from when I was younger. It was late 80s, but I always remember that video. The winds of change.
Dude, that video still gets me. Is that weird? Because I'm such like a 90s, 80s, 90s child that like people don't remember what that was like. Like the world was coming together and like wars were going to be over.
Yep. Crazy to see where we are now. And then that damn gorilla had to die in 2016, and here we are.
Fucking gorillas. I just dropped an F-bomb at the very end.
I miss you, Harambe.
Yep.
It's okay. This is never going to see the light of day, especially this part. Man, we talked about religion. I can't wait to text Peaches and be like, we talked about religion. We talked about politics. We talked about, pedophilia, sort of.
I have a theory now. It just came to me. I figured out why we had to get all this out on the table. Neither one of us had a classical Thanksgiving sit down with family members that are idiots to argue with.
That's a good point.
I think it's this time of year that you're supposed to get this stuff out.
Yeah.
And like, I didn't have anybody to fight with at Thanksgiving because they,
because you were around a bunch of like-minded people that were just there to love each other. I will say that I was laughing at the memes about, I get to be the conservative uncle at Thanksgiving or whatever. Yeah. I didn't have a single political discussion. I didn't have a single back and forth. I had a really good discussion with one of my friends just about things in general, but it was just like, he was like, yeah, I just kind of feel it feels weird. I feel lost. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I feel that too. And that was the extent of it. It was fantastic. The memes were hilarious. And I imagined that there were some people that got into wacky conversations, but I didn't have any of them. I was fine.
Dude, every Thanksgiving we got to release this episode. we gotta get on and talk about politics and religion and all the things that we avoid all year, because that's when you get it out.
Exactly. And then just get it out. We're going to put it out. It's going to get demonetized right away. It'll be live on Rumble. It'll be on Locals. It won't be on YouTube. It might be on Twitter. We should get a Twitter now. Now that Twitter's not garbage, I'm going to get the Ones Ready Twitter back up and running.
Let's do it.
Make that happen. Absolutely fantastic. All right, man. I should have hit stop record about, 45 minutes ago, but I'm going to do it now so that we get done. If you guys are still here, if you guys hear this, I feel like Iron Man in the Marvel Avengers movie leaving his message for Pepper Potts. If you guys are hearing this right now, we love you. Thanks for following along. Check out onesready.com. Check out all of our partners. Hit us up on the IG. Hit us up on info@onesready. We appreciate your support through all these wacky things and listening to hour-long podcasts that really got nowhere, but covered a lot of ground.
Covered Ohio beige, though. So watch out for merch that's called Ohio beige.
Why is it all the same color? Why is all the food in Ohio the same color? Questions that we can't answer. All right. Train hard, everybody. Later.